I know we have been talking this week about the Majestic 12 stuff, and I have shared documents that I had bogarted.
Well, I do appreciate you sending those over. I did start to look into them, but as always, there's piles and piles of things to dig through. So they're in my to-do list. So thank you very much. We're winding up getting to the conversation faster than I was able to go in that direction because there was a couple of other rabbit holes that I had gone into recently that I'm still kind of lost in and trying to get back out of. Technically, the MJ12 thing just kind of really fell on my lap because I've been following through my work for quite some time now a gentleman by the name of Lloyd Berkner, who I track back as far as Byrd's first Antarctic expedition. This guy's been in this game a long time that I've been tracking him. So, I mean, from the Antarctic expedition to he had apparently a very meritorious career in the military where he got credit for winning some battles. That it was
Wow.
his techno advancement of some of the stuff at the time that he finagled to figure out radars and things differently that really did some big stuff for technology and for battles at the time. And he had that on his resume, and a multitude of other interesting, I guess you'd say, energy related things. And that eventually got him over into Brookhaven National Labs in a peculiar little office that was intended or titled, I guess you would say, for the purposes of basically disseminating the information learned at Brookhaven through all of, collegiate offices and things like that. So that's what they were saying his job was. And I've seen his name on all kinds of documents and paperwork that I've been tracking through the Stargate program, through Operation Paperclip, through all kinds of different programs in Brookhaven and Long Island proper, and all that post-World War II calamity with the MK Ultra stuff. So this guy's in there all over the place. And it's just come across my radar that he was also one of the founding members of MJ12.
Wow.
And it blew my mind. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, now we're going to add this to the list for Mr. Berkner, that now he's also a founding member of MJ12.
Majestic 12 was an organization that was put together by Harry Truman himself before the treaty was signed with the Germans in Antarctica, and it was kind of his oversight committee for all things related to the Germans in Antarctica and UFOs in general, and how this was going to be handled officially by the US government. And they even had them classified as 2 levels above very top secret. So this was a higher classification rating than the H-bomb had been, which is no wonder that the FBI is unable to get verification that they were real, because they're not that level. So it gets really interesting sometimes when you read through what people write about it. I know there was a article on The Verge that made fun of us for believing in it, and the article on Wikipedia is hilarious. They're trying to be respectful while making fun of us at the same time.
So you're saying that a lot of people are still thumbing their nose at the existence of MJ12, technically?
Yes, there are outrageous numbers of people still making fun of us for having historical documents in our hands.
That's funny.
So, yes, it is what it is. If you don't want to believe something, you're not going to believe it no matter what evidence is presented. Okay, my understanding about Majestic 12 is that anytime that there was a crash of a UFO, that they would send someone to investigate, and that they would pick up the witnesses and They eventually had the mind wipe technology that's used in the space programs, and they would erase their memory of the event, just like they disclose in the Men in Black comedies. So if that didn't work, because it doesn't always, then they would intimidate these people. And if that didn't work, then the people would disappear. And there were lots of witnesses that suddenly went mind blank or suddenly disappeared.
It is literally a circus. The media is a circus, both literally and figuratively. It's like the three rings and the spotlight and the conductor. And pay no attention to what's going on when we shut the light off over in that ring. We're just really setting up for something else. And that's what COINTEL is all about. It's just that
Well,
two-step of controlling where the light comes on, where everybody in the audience focuses their attention.
during the Obama administration, those of us who were paying attention
Mhm.
were aware that there was legislation put through in a NDAA, which funds the military and therefore has to be passed. Okay? There was legislation added to that that allowed the Voice of America to give propaganda that they would normally give to other countries to the American people as well. And the effect of this was that it was now legal for the media to lie to you. And this was when Fox News became suddenly very popular.
Okay, Project Troy, from what I'm digging into, seems to have much of the same players from MJ12 in it, from back in the early 50s as well. And it is all about the Voice of America radio network and the first time that they found that the Soviets were impeding upon it.
The Soviets didn't like our propaganda any more than people like you and I do.
Understood. This is really interesting.
They're
Getting
not.
right back into that.
I don't understand why everybody thinks that other countries, the people are stupid. They're not.
Mm-hmm.
The Soviet Union did not get to be an empire physically the size of the United States by being stupid. The Soviet Union fell, the Russian Federation is back,
Mm-hmm.
and they are capitalists. So anybody that says the Russians are communists in this day, they're fools. The guy from JPL.
Oh, Parsons?
Yeah, Jack Parsons
Yeah.
was that
It's not
time
Jack
period.
Parsons Lab, folks. It's Jet Propulsion Lab.
Yeah, it was Jack Parsons' lab.
It is Jack Parsons' lab. You don't have to believe in what these people believe in. You just have to understand that they do believe in it. So if they
do believe in it and they get results.
If they feel that doing some ritual is going to get them the outcome that they're looking for, they'll do the ritual.
And they don't care who they hurt in the process.
That is correct. They are very organized, and bad people organize faster than good people. Unfortunately, that's what history teaches us time and time again.
There are 5 very ancient beings who are all ETs who are operating different religions, and they are the groups that most people understand as Satanist. And it's really, really hard to overcome that propaganda, because you don't have to worry about the Church of Satan. They're actually just a bunch of atheists that are pulling everybody's legs so that they can stop the overwhelming Christianity of the government. But on the other hand, Baphomet worshipers are trading in adrenochrome, which is taken from children who are being tortured. Moloch worshipers actually still sacrifice their firstborn, and if they don't kill the kid, they have to they have to raise it as trans, the other gender. Um, and they are the ones who are doing the stuff like in the movie Eyes Wide Shut. And then there are the folks who worshiped Marduk, and they sacrificed babies to him. And there's a couple more.
It's my understanding.
Azazel is even in the Bible, and he was the one that they sacrificed the scapegoat to. And these are real religions that go back thousands of years, and each one has a different ET as their god. These are not what people think they are.
I had been reading something recently that was stating that, again, whether this is true or not, I don't know. This is what was stated, that Marduk was in control of planet Earth by whatever contract or edict or whatever for a very long time. But that I think in 2016 or 17, that he was removed from power and put on trial and effectively killed. Do you have any info on that? And I want to start with the idea that he was. Do you agree that he was in power? Was that a factual statement?
Yes.
Okay.
That's a factual statement. The Galactic Authority, the government of the galaxy, considered him to be the rightful ruler of Earth.
Okay. How did that
Still
happen?
does. That's because there is a cyclic thing among the Jahami. History knows them as Anunnaki,
Okay.
where that they have this device called the Tablets of Destiny.
Okay.
And it passed between the royals every 2,000 years. And Marduk had it for the last 2,000 years.
And is that just a possession thing technically?
No, it's you own this device that is basically a terminal onto the computer that runs the matrix. So you are literally the god of gods while you have this. And he benefited from the last war between the two Anunnaki brothers, Enlil and Anki, because he was Anki's firstborn, and he took possession of Earth, and the others could not take it from him. So during this 2,000-year period, he has been paying the taxes on Earth to the Draco.
And this was a manifest being walking the face of the Earth?
Yes, this was a physical 3D being, yes.
Okay.
And his tour of duty, I guess is the best way to look at it, was up in September of 2017.
Okay.
And he turned over the tablets to Tiamat, who is a reptilian dragon person. And she chose someone else to have them. And I'm not going to talk about that part.
10-4.
But
so Marduk's not a title then? It's a name for the person that had the tablet.
Marduk is the name of the individual who had them.
Is there a title that goes to that?
Yeah, there's a title. It's called the L.
Okay.
EL.
Okay.
And the L is if you look through historical records, the L is the chief god. A lot of the times you have humans fighting humans in ET wars we had nothing to do with. Wowzers. So,
what's the purpose of either faction being there? Money? They're just mercenaries?
The companies are mercenaries, and
Monarch and Kruger.
They sell our services in exchange for advanced tech.
In my digging into rabbit holes and such, I had sent you a link earlier in an email that was a song about a gentleman named Claude Dallas. I don't know if you had a chance to take a look at that at all.
I saw it, but didn't have time to listen.
No worries. It was simply just a country western song, but it was made about a gentleman named Claude Dallas. He was the nation's most wanted man. I believe it was in 1981, and he was running from the feds out of Idaho at the time. So back in the 70s was apparently when they started enforcing, I guess, like hunting licenses and things, is what I'm being told, as far as enforcing it. That, you used to have to go get permits and licenses and stuff, but there wasn't really anyone running around in the middle of places enforcing it. But apparently they started doing it. And at the time, they said one of the best ways for you to get the heat off of your back would be to roll on someone else doing something worse than you, which is pretty common cop tactic. We've seen it before. So in this area, people were rolling and rolling and rolling till eventually the feds were looking for this man, Claude.
Mm-hmm.
They made movies about this man, actually, back in the 80s, TV series, songs, all kinds of stuff. He's actually known as the last American outlaw.
That I remember.
This is Claude Dallas, the last American outlaw. He lived off the land out in the middle of nowhere like an old school American. He was like the last one. So since he hunted and trapped to sustain himself and to live and to have goods for market, he certainly wasn't following licensing practices.
No.
But he was living off of the land and killing and using. Long story short, folks in the area who didn't want to get in trouble turned him in. The feds went out.
It would have been so simple if they had just left him alone.
They could have just simply left him alone. He wasn't bothering anyone.
Yeah.
They went out to what Claude considered his home.
Mm-hmm.
These were armed men who were accusing him of federal crimes, and he was not acquiescing. But long story short, they wanted to go on his property and gather evidence inside his home. A lot of people would say, well, it's just a tent and he's in the woods, and how, he doesn't have a right.
They were supposed to have a warrant.
They were supposed to have warrants. They were supposed to be doing a lot of stuff as far as he was concerned. They apparently, according to his testimony, overstepped all lines and were going to kill him because he was not acquiescing. He was standing up for himself. He says they drew on him, or were going to.
Well, under the old rules,
of fighting with words and things like that, right? So he's the type of person that basically would say he was a fighting man. So from his description, he was saying that in that moment, he knew those men intended to kill him.
Yeah.
So he stopped it by killing them.
And in the old days, pre-1950, that was standard practice. You stood your ground, you defended yourself, and if they drew first and they didn't have a warrant, then you were within your rights.
You're technically within your rights today to do that. Technically.
Yeah. Well, you are, but nobody gets by with it anymore.
No one got by with it when he did it.
So
he drew on them and finished the job.
Yeah.
And then, basically, he was on the run at that point, and they wound up catching him eventually. He did go to jail. He did escape from jail as well. And he went on the run again, which this is why his story was fantastic. So they called him the last outlaw, and made songs, made movies, and so on and so forth. And the reason that I had brought this up was because I had just remembered that when I had first come up to Alaska, one of the first contracts that I picked up for working out remotely in the bush, in the middle of nowhere, in a fly-in, fly-out capacity. And, excuse me, I was just told to be really nice to the guy that I was going to be working with, that he was, a good man, but he was a fair and straight shooter.
Yeah. Fair and straight shooter can mean a lot of things.
Yeah, but he was a hard-working back, like, I was going out to the middle of nowhere in Alaska for the first
Mm,
time, so I was relatively concerned. Hey, what's going on here? And this is new to me.
yeah.
Don't worry, we got a guy. He knows everything about what it's like to live in the woods. It'll be okay.
Was it him?
Yep, it was Claude. So
You knew Claude?
yeah,
Oh my
I
goodness.
camped out in the middle of nowhere with Claude, and we built our camp. We did our contract. We shared stories, and it was an amazing, amazing conversation. And he taught me a lot of stuff. There's different
Okay.
histories. This is what amazes me about, like, the digging and the rabbit holes, and you make connections. So Claude and I were here, and I didn't know what I was getting into technically, but a
Yeah.
storm came and socked us in, and we had hunkered down into one tent, and it was pretty spacious. It's a weatherport tent, so it's not like we're on top of each other, but we hunkered down one structure.
Might have been warmer if you had been on top of each other.
Theoretically, well, we had a drip stove in the tent. We had a heat
Oh,
source,
okay.
but we were hunkering down for perchance that we brought everything into one spot. We didn't
Yeah.
intend the rest of the camp holding together, but in this process, I became educated as to who Claude was, and this is like the right time to get to find out, right? Like, now that we're,
Oh, well, like
yeah,
my second husband, I found out on my honeymoon that he was a mafia hitman.
yeah.
Yeah. Too late to back out.
I was out in the middle of nowhere with a guy that is most known for killing people out in the middle of nowhere. So he tells me his whole story. The storm is, does what it's doing or whatever. And at one point in the night, he did retire out to what was supposed to be his tent. He didn't stay in there. The camp pretty much held together.
Good.
But the next morning when we woke up, I got a knock on my tent, and it was Claude outside. And, since I was the resident plumber, he informed me that in the 100-mile-an-hour winds that we had the night before, he says, and he sounded like the guy from Sling Blade, and he turns to me and he goes, I open the door and I go, hey, Claude, what's going on? And he goes, the outhouse blew over. That's a plumbing problem. And I just looked at him dead, like, no pause. I just said, aye, aye. I'm on it. I'm so on it. You got to go to the bathroom? I got this covered, bro. Don't kill me. I can be extremely agreeable. What would you like for breakfast? Yeah, I became the happiest guy on the job site. Want me to fix that for you, Claude?